Welcome to Saying Yes Again,
a podcast about second chances, real love, and opening your heart after heartbreak.
We're your hosts, Dr. Lisa
and Tony,
a midlife couple who found love after divorce. And now we're here to share our story.
And to remind you that it's never too late to say yes again.
So put on your headphones and listen closely, because your next yes could be the one that changes everything. Welcome to the Saying Yes Again podcast. So I'm Dr. Lisa.
And I'm Tony.
And we're excited to be back again for another episode. Can you believe it, honey? This is episode number 3.
I cannot believe it, but it's been absolutely awesome.
It has been an amazing ride. We have received so much support, so much positive feedback.
Yes, we have.
Yeah, and we didn't even expect it, but it's just a wonderful thing to see and to receive.
Yes, and thank you guys very much for joining our social community, saying Yes Again podcast community. We really, really appreciate it.
Yes, we really do appreciate it. So you look a little Caribbean today.
Yes, I am Caribbean. Do you remember where I bought this particular stone here, babe?
I do. So I think it was Aruba, was it?
It was Aruba. But for those who hadn't been there, absolutely awesome.
Yes, we loved our vacation in Aruba. It was so relaxing. The food was awesome. The people were so friendly.
They were.
Right?
Very much
so. Oh my gosh. The weather was beautiful.
Yes.
It was just the perfect setting for the best vacation ever.
It was. How about the name of my stone? Do you remember? Now, I'm really testing you now.
Of course I don't remember. I don't remember the name of your stone. It's beautiful, though.
Yes.
What's the name of the stone, honey?
Avernreen. I know I'm probably messing that up, but that's as close as I'm going to get.
Oh, okay.
It's supposed to provide for calmness and luckiness, and we definitely need some luck, right?
Yeah, and is it your zodiac sign?
Yes, it is my zodiac sign. I thought it was awesome, and I was looking for a little luck, a little energy.
Oh,
we've been blessed.
Nice.
Yeah, thank you.
What's your zodiac sign?
Aries. I am a Aries. April 12th.
Them Aries.
Yes. We keep them smiling, right?
So I am a Sagittarius.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when we were first dating, so my daughter said, she's really into zodiac signs.
I didn't know that about you now.
Oh, yeah, she's really into zodiac signs. So she said, what is his zodiac sign? Oh, I said, really? So she said, yeah, what's his zodiac sign? I said, it's Aries. So she did her little research. She came back and she said, okay, I think that's going to work. I didn't know
Janelle did a background. She did a background?
She did a whole zodiac background check. Wow. Yes.
FYI, if you make it through Janelle's background check, you have made it and made it again.
So. Yes. You have definitely made it.
Wow. So what are we going to be talking about today?
Yeah. So today I think, we're going to be talking about another topic that I think is really important, right, for people to start to think about and dive into when they're thinking about getting into another relationship, or maybe even contemplating saying yes again. And that's about thinking about what your identity is outside of your previous relationship. Right. Okay. So rediscovering who you are, like, who are you now that you're not in that relationship? So we're going to talk about that a little bit today.
So rebuilding your identity after 50?
Rebuilding your identity after 50.
Okay.
That's our episode for today.
I can definitely relate.
Okay, so then let's get right into it. So I think the hardest thing for me actually was this process that we're talking about today is, this rediscovery of yourself after you've been through a major loss, a major heartbreak, divorce, or maybe for some people, it's becoming widowed or just losing a partner. And going through that process of rediscovering who you are is a journey. It's another journey in the healing process of
definitely.
Yeah, of trying to find, what those next steps sort of look like for you.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. So I know for me, for those of you who don't know my story, which is why we're kind of doing this podcast, I was in a marriage for 25 years, which is a long time, and in that time of being in a marriage for that long, you begin to develop your identity based on what that relationship kind of brings for you, right? And being apart from that relationship now, you're kind of left with, okay, so who am I? What do I like? What do I want to do? What are my next steps? Do I even remember what I like to do?
Kind of redefining yourself all over again.
Exactly, exactly. And I was doing some research about this as well because I want people to know that it's not just you. Everybody goes through this process, even a lot of the stars, who have gone through heartbreak or who have gone through a divorce. They put themselves or they see themselves, rediscovering who they are. And for a lot of the stars, it's out in the media, right? Everybody can see it. We can
Yeah,
see the process of them sort of
exactly.
peeling back these layers,
All over the place. They're fully exposed.
fully exposed, right? So we're going through that as well, for those of us who are not famous. I mean, we're going through that behind the scenes. And one of the stories that I pulled up was of Princess Tatiana of Greece, right?
Oh,
Who,
wow.
yeah, she recently went through a divorce. She was married for 14 years and she wrote a blog and she's really starting to talk about this on her social media about reflecting about losing her identity
Wow. Princess Tatiana of Greece
of Greece.
going through something like that you and I are going through
Exactly,
or
exactly.
have gone
I
through.
have gone through. And as you can imagine, again, she's in the public eye.
Definitely.
But you can also imagine what identity came with her being a princess,
Yes.
right? And that
Yes.
role that she had to play, being a princess of Greece. So she recently talked about it, and she actually said that one thing that I did want to share, which I thought was really, really eye opening, is that maybe your identity isn't something that you lose. Maybe it's something where we evolve, where we rediscover, and we redefine.
Definitely. Definitely. Wow. Those are good points, man. Those
Yeah,
are good points. So you don't actually lose your identity. You evolve and kind of grow from that point on.
exactly, exactly. And it can be a beautiful place, although it's a place of loss. It can also be a beautiful place as well, right? Where you start to, again, just rediscover who you are and redefine, and you get to choose now what that looks like, what those next steps look like.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So if you are listening to this podcast, if you're, watching us, then, and if you are recently divorced, if you're recently widowed, if you have recently lost a partner, we want to talk about what those steps are to reclaiming your identity and creating a life, that hopefully now you'll get to rediscover and also redefine. So let's talk about that. Let's talk about the identity shift that happens, right? So when we start to, you know, go through the process of this long-term relationship ending, we often lose some things. What are some of those things that you can think of, babe, that that we may start to lose?
We kind of lose our role.
Mm,
Our role. I know in my previous relationship slash marriage, I had to be a positive father figure slash role model, and I look forward to that, and didn't quite know exactly how much I look forward to that until it was actually over. Another thing, our purpose. You know,
mm-hmm,
you have to be, a provider, um, you know, a strong person, a reinforcer, etc. So after doing that for quite some time, and then suddenly it's over, that can be devastating. That
mm,
can be,
yeah. That's a
yeah,
that's a good one, I think, purpose, because I know for me as well, I found purpose in being a mom, and being a wife and
yes,
being a nurturer. We find purpose in those things. So
definitely.
definitely. So when it ends, you have to kind of redefine what your new purpose is.
Yes, and that can be frightening, as I've indicated. One of the other things, babe, is the community that was established as a result of my previous marriage or your previous marriage or relationship or even yours. You know, you get so accustomed to that that you're not even aware of it to a certain degree until it comes to a screeching halt. So now
Mhm.
all of a sudden, you have
Yeah.
to start rebuilding that whole community and adapting to that drastic change. And
Yeah.
for some people, it could be devastating or whatever. But
Yeah, definitely. Community is a big one because even a lot of times what may come into play as you are, moving through this process of going through a breakup, your community may change just by the sheer fact that your location may change geographically. Like maybe you had to move, or maybe you decided to move somewhere different. So your community can change even just because of, a move that you've had to make.
good point, because I've been here 32 years. I'm from Pennsylvania, Erie, Pennsylvania, and you've been here for about what, 5 years?
About 5 years, yeah, yeah. Oh, maybe even almost 6, but
So that has to
yeah,
be
so that was tough because, a lot of my community, friends,
support group.
support group and all of that, yeah, was back in New Jersey. So
Wow.
moving to Georgia, I have family here, which was a blessing in and of itself. But just those dynamics, those groups that I belonged to and some of the things that I was involved in, yeah, had to change, definitely.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah. So those are some things I think that people, are challenged with is just, losing those four things that you just mentioned, your role,
Purpose.
your purpose, your community. And
Yes.
then the
Yes.
last thing also is that you also lose your routine,
Yes.
right?
Yes. Yes. Definitely.
Yeah. So we all have a routine that we're used to, whether that's, getting up whatever time in the morning, then you have your route that you would go to work or your route that you would go to wherever, do the thing, come home, and you just kind of have this routine that you're used to, and that routine extends when you get home, right? Maybe the routine was okay that you're gonna just for me, maybe it was starting a meal and then, you know, helping the kids with homework and then doing all those things. And now again, that routine is
I'm,
different.
I'm glad you mentioned that, because obviously we had a routine. I would come home and there was no more meals prepared. The things that you take for granted. No
And
more
he loves
meals.
to eat.
No more. Don't tell my secret, babe. No more meals prepared. I can remember a time when I came home and I actually called out my ex's name to find out what station the basketball game was on. And then it just dawned on me, Tony, listen, you're not in that social community anymore, so you're going to have to do some research yourself. So you bring up a
Yeah.
good point.
Yeah. Yeah. So those are things, again, that you may lose as you go through, this period of separation. So I can remember this funny story where I did most of the grocery shopping. So I remember one time I was in the grocery store, and this is after, having gone through my divorce. So I was in the grocery store, and I started my routine was that I would go to like a large store like Costco and just like, pile up, on snacks and all those things because, the kids at the time were home. And I had a growing athlete at home. So I would just really like, pile up the shopping cart. And I remember being in the grocery store and I started reaching for those things. And I'm like, who am I buying this stuff for?
Wow. So Nigel was no longer at the house. Wow.
Yeah, who am I buying this stuff for? And so I had to realize that, wow, okay, my routine has changed. My shopping habits now
Yes.
will need to change. I'm just shopping for one and not, for three or four. So yeah, so that was a story that I vividly remember as just being that time where I recognized, I know, right?
That was huge. That was huge, babe. That was huge.
That there was that shift. Yeah.
Empty nester.
I know. So what is the next thing in terms of like just reclaiming, your identity? Because we talked about like in the story with Princess Tatiana, how she had to sort of go through this process of self-discovery again. And she talked about peeling back the layers, which I thought was really interesting,
Mm.
interesting spin on it, right?
Oh,
She
that
talked
is.
about, yeah, peeling back the layers in order to rediscover, who you are again.
Oh, wow.
And part of her journey, a part of the healing journey for her was to actually go back and visit some of the countries in which she had lived previously when she was younger.
So start doing some of the things that she did before she became the mom.
Yes, yes. And she felt that by doing that, she could tap into some of the things that kind of brought her joy and some of the things,
Oh, interesting.
yeah,
Interesting.
that she enjoyed, before she had the identity, right, of being a wife and being in that role.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's sort of her, journey. And I think it's interesting. And I think it's also maybe a good exercise for
I,
someone to do.
I was just going to say that'd be a good exercise. So outside of your community of being married or whatever, don't just stay stuck in that rut feeling lost or whatever. Like she just indicated, start doing some of those things you were doing before that relationship, before that marriage that brought you peace, and it might provide for some comfort and assistance as far as just going through this rebuilding slash healing process.
Yeah. And I think it also allows you to just tap into some of the things maybe that were shut down,
Mm.
that you
Yes.
just didn't remember, or that maybe you pushed to the side and didn't do because you took on this new role and new identity. So think about some of those things that you loved to do before
Yeah.
and just start rediscovering and doing those things again. Maybe you might find that you like it, maybe you won't, but at least you're kind of just figuring it out as you go through the process.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah. So one of the things I realized also, through this process of rediscovery is that um we have choices, right? So we get to really make the choice to explore new things and to try new things without judgment because, now we're in a space that we can really begin to do that. And a lot of times I feel like we need to give ourselves some grace and give ourselves like permission to be able to do those things, right?
I like the way that's well put. Yes.
Yeah.
That
I know sometimes, like as a coach, I have to tell my clients that, right? Like, give yourself permission to just make a different choice,
wow.
right? What are some of the things that maybe, you may have wanted to try but didn't because of fear? Or because you didn't have time to do it? Or even what would you do if you didn't have to worry about it failing or not working out?
Yeah. And then some people they get it. We get into this community as we've been talking about, and we put handlebars around ourselves or within on this relationship, and we kind of restrict ourselves without even being aware of it.
Yeah.
So, like one of those
Mhm.
waiting to excel moments. Just do something
Do
daring,
something daring, do
right?
something different. Absolutely.
What was your different? What did you
Waiting
do?
to exhale, honey, that's a whole new
Yeah, I read the book. Watched the movie. Remember, she got divorced and she went out and had the
Yes.
bonfire. Her, Whitney Houston, and the rest of them. So, what was your waiting to excel moment?
My waiting to exhale moment was, yeah, because I wanted to try some new things as well. So actually, so I took a trip with well, actually it was my cousin and my girlfriends. We took a trip to Colombia.
Columbia.
Yes, and it's not that I had never traveled before. I guess I would say I had, again, put myself in a box of where I was going, where I
Handlebars.
traveled, right?
Handlebars.
And Colombia was a place that I would have never ever thought to travel to. So, I just said, yeah, sign me up. And I went on the trip and it was the best trip ever.
That was huge. That was
Best
huge.
trip ever.
I would have never thought Columbia.
It was. I mean, I think that trip just allowed me again to step outside of my box. It allowed me to feel comfortable traveling, with I wouldn't say by myself because I went with other women, but
Okay.
certainly just traveling, with a group of women.
Yes.
Um, and we did a lot of adventurous things on the trip. So it was so exciting. It was so exhilarating. And again, it was something that I probably would have never done
Yes.
before.
Yes. Wow.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have thought of that.
Yeah.
Hable español? Yeah, I gotta have to test you out, baby. Hable español? No comprende usted?
No comprende usted.
No problema. No problema. So you took a trip to
So I
Colombia.
took a trip to
Colombia. That was your
Colombia.
waiting to exhale moment,
Yes, it
right?
was. It was.
And it was an awesome one.
It was. Yeah. Yeah. So I would just say to anyone out there, just give yourself permission to do something different, to try something different. Maybe it's a new cuisine that you want to try. Maybe it's a new activity.
Yes.
Again, maybe it's traveling somewhere that you would have not thought to do, before.
Hmm.
Maybe it's learning a new skill even.
Yes, definitely. For me, I you know, I would say maybe 3, 4, 5 months after getting divorced, some friends asked me to go along with them to Jamaica.
Hmm.
And that was huge because I wasn't really traveling a lot at that time. Again, as we've been talking about it, I was obligated to my social community. And so we did certain things or whatever, one of which wasn't really traveling. So after going through my whole analytical process, I decided I trumped up the confidence to go, and I went, and it was absolutely awesome.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Yeah.
I was eating curry, jerk chicken. It was coming out of my ears. You know what I mean? And just the environment, the freedom, the adventurous aspect, it just really gave me a calmness. And it gave me,
Hmm.
as we're talking about today, baby, it gave me a new identity.
Yeah. Yeah.
It made me feel whole again. So
Yes.
I guess what we're saying in essence is don't lose yourself, whether you're in a relationship or a marriage. It's okay to, take care, your responsibilities, excuse me, within that community, but don't lose yourself. You
Exactly.
know, that
Yeah.
was awesome. Jamaica was awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think
Yaman.
he's so crazy.
Yaman.
I think you have a good point in saying that it's important that you don't lose yourself, even in the relationship that you're currently in, and don't wait until a relationship ends until you feel like you have to, have this sort of, I guess, freedom to explore different things. We want to grow when we're in relationships,
Yes.
and part
Yes.
of growing is exploring new things.
Definitely.
So yeah, good
Definitely.
point. Good point to do that
If
now.
I can add a footnote here, that's one of the things that is extremely reinvigorating or invigorating about our relationship now. Because she introduced me to traveling and some other things that it just keeps it fresh, you
Hmm.
know.
Yeah.
It keeps it really fresh. So I thank you for that.
Welcome,
Keep up
honey.
the good work. All right?
I'm trying. So the beautiful thing is that, you get to create a life that you love, and you get to sort of decide what that looks like. And I think that's important because when you can build that life that you love and build it and include things that make you happy, that bring you
Yes.
joy, and that creates, your personal growth, then you become more attractive to a potential partner, right?
Mm.
You have something to, I don't want to say necessarily bring to the table, but you have something now that you can talk about, that you can share experiences that you can talk about.
Yes.
You can
Yes.
bring that other person into the fold if they want to. And you're less likely to just want to fill the void of having a relationship to fill the void rather. Um, and you're more interested in finding that person that complements you, right? As
Good
opposed to
point.
filling the
Good
void.
point. We recently went to a concert. It was totally out of our realm of what we normally and traditionally do. But when I did some research, I thought it would be very intriguing, very graceful, and I thought that it would be really, really cute, a nice little date or flirtatious type thing for my wife and I, just to keep things spiced up. So we went to a trip, or to a trip. We actually went to a concert, John Baptiste, right?
Oh, yeah, that was a good
Yes,
concert.
yes, yes.
Mhm.
Pianist, listen to a little Beethoven, out of the norm or whatever. You know, we like our music, a variety of music, but I thought it was a moment for us to go out on a nice little date, flirt with one another, and keep things kind of spiced up.
Mhm. Yeah. No, that was an excellent date. I was not that familiar with John Batiste. Heard of him and
I said
saw him
Baptiste.
saw him on a couple of interviews. But but it was a wonderful
Oh,
concert. Yeah, he's an amazing, amazing artist and yeah, so again, something outside of my comfort zone of what I would have done, but definitely, definitely enjoyed it.
she went crazy because I would not tell her where we were going. I would not tell. How do I dress? What do I put on? Just be presentable, babe. Right? I have to
Yeah.
keep the intrigue there, right?
Yeah.
Be presentable.
You do a good
All right.
job.
Okay.
So part of, rebuilding also, I think is, we talked about community in the past, but part of rebuilding is also like beginning to expand your social circles because let's face it, sometimes, you may have to build new relationships. And that's not to say that old friends, are dying off or that you're, removing yourself from those old relationships. But a lot of times, building new connections and new friends and new social circles helps to kind of rebuild your identity, right? Or rebuild this new identity, helps you to, again, kind of rediscover and redefine, what this new chapter in your life is going to look like. So expanding social circles is really important.
Yes, yes. I share a little bit of my community when we joined forces. She shared a little bit of her community with me. And then we added where it was healthy to our community. And I can say it's been real refreshing.
Mhm.
You know, I've
Yeah.
gone from these dormant activities that uh, you know, used to do in the past to golfing,
Hmm.
to traveling, golfing, traveling. She even has me reading. I am not the
Say it
reading.
like I'm just like this,
No, you.
teacher with a stick or something.
I mean, you're like grooming me, babe. You're grooming me, and it's okay. I'm volunteering. You know, yeah.
You're a willing participant.
I'm a willing participant.
Okay.
So that social circle is fantastic.
Yeah,
Again, I
yeah.
still have a lot of friends from my old community, good friends, but growing. You always want to be refining yourself, growing yourself. So you have to
Mhm.
expand that community.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Definitely, definitely.
excuse me.
So one of the things I think is important for us to kind of shift to is, now that we talked about what that looks like, rediscovering who you are, rediscovering a new identity, how do you now put all that together so that you can date from a place of wholeness, right? Now that you've done all this work. So how do you now date from a place of wholeness? Um, I think it's also important to kind of think about, so what does that look like? What are the signs that you may be ready, right, to start dating from a place of wholeness?
Well, one, you genuinely enjoy your own company. You like who you are. You know, you
Yeah, that's a
reinvented
good one.
yourself. You know, I started exercising, something I typically didn't do, and I need to get back to, and it was just invigorating.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah. Enjoying your own company is really important. Sometimes some people even say, take yourself out on a date.
yeah, it's called keeping yourself company.
Right. Take yourself
I've
out
done
on a
that a
date.
lot. I've done that a lot before I met you, babe.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. And that's one of the beautiful things that I loved about you when we met. It was that one of the things that attracted me to you was that I had a sense that, you were happy with where you were, that you
okay,
kind of, did the work of rediscovering yourself.
I did.
And you were just really excited about bringing me into your life.
Oh, excited. That's an understatement. But one of the things that I did do as a part of rebuilding myself is I knew that I wanted to meet a quality woman, right? So what do we have to do in those situations? Is we have to start taking care of our own program, healing, redefining our community, taking care of our finances, etc. We won't get it all into all of that, but I had to take care of those things. So then when I come into the company of a quality person, at least I have something to bring to the table. And that helps that
Hmm.
whole situation out,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah, definitely.
But
So what's another sign?
you have interest in activities you love.
Mm,
Yes, I wasn't ever a golfer and I don't golf all the time now, but I'm open to it. I do it periodically. And hadn't I delved off into it, I never would have known
mhm.
that I have a liking for it,
Yeah,
you know? I have a
yeah,
liking for it.
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's been wonderful for me.
yeah.
You golf as well, don't you, babe?
Yeah, I have not been, consistent with it lately, but
She hasn't.
I'm looking forward to getting back into it. It was actually a very welcome new skill that I learned that helped
Yes.
me through the process of, again, rediscovering myself. Because I always knew that I wanted to try golf, but I never took the time to really do it. And so I just kind of researched, women's golf communities in Atlanta and hooked up with Golf Women Mean Business. And it was a great community to join, like minded women, professional women, just wanting to
Yes.
learn the game of golf, not really to be, a golf pro, but just to kind of learn what it means to be on a golf course.
That community is an awesome community too,
Yeah.
because I had the privilege of meeting some of those ladies.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
hadn't you chose the golf, you never would have been able to delve off into that community. So good
Mm-hmm.
point. Good point.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a great community, and it's nice to be part of a community where, if you're maybe you missed a couple of meetings or you didn't go, you're not there, and people kind of reach out to you, "Hey, everything okay?
Yes.
What do you have going on? When are we going to see you again?" People are excited to kind of bring you into their community. So yeah. So what's another sign, honey? So the first two, I think, were really good.
You've processed the major emotions from your past relationships,
Mm.
so you've gotten to a point where you're healed, you're in a good space, you've rebuilt yourself. you know
Mm-hmm.
we have no ill feelings or ill will toward anybody that was in our lives, because we feel like, or what we focus on as far as she and I are concerned, and we'd like for you to do the same, is the positive things that we've extracted from that.
Mhm. Yeah.
So we've processed that, and we're moving on, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So,
And I think that's we talked about that, I think, in the previous podcast, in the baggage check, right? Is like
yes,
healing those wounds, making sure that, you take the time to go through the healing process so those emotions don't become part of your new story or your new identity.
they will weigh you down,
Yes, definitely.
generational baggage, your own baggage. That stuff will weigh you down. And like she mentioned, she was able to see that I was in a good space.
Mhm.
And whether you realize it or not, people can see that. I can remember,
Yeah.
not to steal your shine, babe, but I can remember some years ago a close friend of mine telling me, "Hey, Tony, we're buddies or whatever, but you're an awesome guy, but I can see that
Mm.
you've been damaged."
Mm.
Right? So you're wreaking this at the same time you're wanting somebody in your community or in your life, but you're not cognizant of the negative vibes that you're giving off.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that's
definitely.
critical.
Yeah, good point.
Thank you.
And do you have another one for us?
Um, I'm just excited about sharing my life. You
Yeah.
know,
Oh, yeah, 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 yeah.
excited about sharing my life. I feel so good about myself, right? Having healed, having rebuilt myself, having clarified my identity, and now when I'm in the company of a quality person that I'm attracted to or whatever, I feel good about sharing my life.
Mm,
You know,
yeah,
I
I
might
like
even
that.
share a little poetry with you one day, baby. Right?
So,
You
I don't
see that smile?
I
You
know
see that smile?
because I didn't even know that you
Oh,
wrote
yeah.
poetry.
Oh, a little bit. Yes.
Okay, I think that's what it took me over the edge, but okay.
Is it? It took you over the
It
edge.
took me over the
Don't
edge.
get
I
flustered.
wasn't expecting that one.
Why? Oh, yeah.
Okay. So just to recap. So remember that rebuilding your identity is the foundation for the rest of your life. So whether you remain single or you find a partnership, right? It really doesn't matter. We want you to sort of get to that space of really rebuilding your identity and rediscovering, redefining who you are so you can
Yes.
live the life
Yes.
that you love.
Because you're a beautiful person, right? Everybody goes through trials and tribulations, but you're a beautiful person. So our objective, Lisa and I's objective, is to speak this into you and bring it out. Bring out
Hmm.
all that beauty.
Hmm.
Okay? All
Yeah.
right?
So we'd love to hear from you. If you are in the process of, rebuilding your identity journey, what does that look like? Or if you have rebuilt your identity, what parts of yourself did you reclaim or discover? We'd love to hear your story and share your thoughts with us on social media.
Yeah, and if this podcast has resonated with you, we'd like for you to share it with friends and to also join in our community. We consider our podcast saying yes again to be a family,
Yes,
right?
absolutely.
We'd love for you to join our family. Remember to visit us on all social media platforms: Spotify, iHeart,
Apple
Apple
Podcasts.
Podcasts.
Hmm.
We're on YouTube
YouTube.
now or whatever. But more importantly, subscribe,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Subscribe.
Subscribe and follow. Absolutely, honey.
Yes.
And don't forget to tune in next week also. So, next week, we are doing a part 2 of this rebuilding your identity. And so, ladies, you don't want to miss this episode because I'm going to be talking about not only the personal identity shifts, but the professional identity shifts sometimes that we're faced with making when we are, separated from a relationship or going through a divorce. And now, you know, embarking upon either being single again or getting into another relationship. So that's going to be a good one.
That is going to be awesome. So, all of our professional sisters and brothers out there, please tune in. You will not want to miss it.
Yes, yes.
Definitely.
So just remember that, rediscovering yourself isn't just a step towards finding love again. It's a journey that's worth taking for your own sake. So we would definitely encourage you to just embark upon this journey. And again, don't forget to reach out and let us know how this is working for you and what are some of the things maybe that you've encountered. So we want to again thank you for listening and thank you for joining us. And this has
Yes.
been the Saying Yes Again podcast.
Yes. And until the next time.